someone from chat was requesting a longer stream. So, I've been thinking, and here's what I've come up with for now. Yes, I got my SpongeBob musical shirt on. It's a beautiful bikini bottom day. But anyways, we've got a new series planned. War and Peace. And yeah, my goal is to finish the entire book on stream. As most of you know, let's see, how did I have this set up before? Oh, just gotta figure out the right setup. Hold on. I've got here organization's always gonna be. Okay, come on. How do I do it? Like that? Yeah, I think so. Okay, I got my mosquito wristband on because there is a lot of mosquitoes flying around. Okay. Alright. What was I gonna say? I don't know, I'm forgetting. Yeah, my memory. Yeah, War and Peace, the series. Yeah, War and Peace. React. I don't think I'll be able to have any of those style streams for the same reason that I haven't been able to have in-game streams. The bandwidth here is just not able to support it. So thank you to my viewers. Yeah, thank you for being patient while we're having this change in offering, change in schedule, change in content style. And as always, thank you for watching. Thank you for being a part of my Storm Champions. Okay, here we go. Let's see if I can turn. I think this is probably the best way. Gotta keep thinking format. It's okay. Okay, War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. Let's see if I can provide some background before we dive in. Leo Tolstoy himself is a Russian author. Come on, I don't want to get bit. Come on, stay away. Leo Tolstoy. He's also known as Count Lev Nikolaevich Tolstoy. In English, he's known as Leo Tolstoy. He's a Russian writer who's regarded as one of the greatest Russian authors of all time. He wrote War and Peace and Anna Karenina. I recently saw Anna Karenina, I think, like a few years ago. Pretty good film. If I recall, it's about a woman who is a patient of the psychologist Carl Jung. She ends up having an affair with him. Pretty cool movie. I'd highly recommend it. Okay. Anyways. I might to show you what he looks like. He kind of looks like Charles Darwin. Yeah. Take a look, see what you think. Hold on a second. That's the writer. And yeah, he does look like Charles Darwin. This guy. In his older years. The version that I'll be reading of War and Peace has been translated to English. Okay. And let me see if I can provide some more background on the author while we're getting ready to read. Or while we're getting ready to dive in to the story. He was a count. He was born in 1828. Almost, actually more than 200 years ago. Right? Is my math right? Almost 200 years ago. He's usually referred in English as Leo Tolstoy. He received nominations for the Nobel Prize in Literature. This is all according to the Wikipedia page. Every year from 1902 to 1906. And for the Nobel Peace Prize in 1901, 1902, and 1909. He was nominated all those years. That he never won is a major controversy. Yeah, the Nobel Prizes have had a few controversies. And apparently he was one of them. I think Gandhi's another one where it's like a... Let me sit up a little bit, see if I can. Hard to do in a recliner. But it's okay. Yeah, I'm relaxed, so it's a trade-off. What was I gonna say? I think Gandhi also did not get the Nobel Peace Prize. I don't know, I might be wrong about that. Who was it? It was like Gandhi or Mother Teresa, one of them. Literature, peace, and economics. Hold on, guys. Yeah, most frequently controversies have been in the fields of literature, peace, and economics. Peace. Who was it? I guess there was some controversy over Barack Obama receiving the Nobel Peace Prize. I remember that. Yeah, anyway. Leo Tolstoy did not receive any Nobel Prizes. Born to an aristocratic Russian family in 1828, he's best known for War and Peace and Anna Karenina. He first achieved literary acclaim in his 20s with his semi-autobiographical trilogy Childhood, Boyhood, and Youth, and Sevastopol sketches based upon his experiences in the Crimean War, which is itself a military conflict fought from October 1853 to February 1856, in which Russia lost to an alliance of France, the Ottoman Empire, the United Kingdom, and Sardinia. As I recall, the Ottoman Empire is a predecessor to uh, German rule. The Reich Empire, I believe. There's some overlap there. Yeah, the Ottomans. Okay. And that I think was the most recent military loss of Russia. Russia didn't actually lose World War I, but they did sustain heavy casualties. Like heavy casualties. There were so many casualties in World War One for Russia that there was a major political revolt that resulted in the end of the Tsar, the rule of the Tsars. They call it the House Romanov. Yeah. The end of House Romanov. From all of the hard times. Okay. But this occurred before all that. Yeah, I guess I can keep reading this. In the 1870s, Tolstoy experienced a profound moral crisis, followed by what he regarded as equally profound spiritual awakening, as outlined in his nonfiction work, A Confession. His literal interpretation of the ethical teachings of Jesus, centering on the Sermon on the Mount, caused him to become a fervent Christian anarchist and pacifist. His ideas on nonviolent resistance, expressed in such works as The Kingdom of God is Within You, had a profound impact on such pivotal 20th century figures as Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. So it's all connected here. He also became a dedicated advocate of Georgism, the economic philosophy of Henry George, which he incorporated into his writing, particularly Resurrection. Christian anarchism is a Christian movement and political ideology that claims anarchism is inherent in Christianity and the Gospels. Anarchist pacifism. It's an anarchist school of thought that advocates for the use of peaceful, nonviolent forms of resistance in the name of social change. So yeah, it's pretty clear how this is connected. The Gospel of Matthew. Okay, here we go. Chapter 1. War and Peace. Book 1. 1805. Chapter 1. And I'll provide commentary throughout, similar to my Portrait of Dorian Gray series. Just my interpretations of what it is I'm reading. And thank you for joining me. Okay. Well, Prince. So Genoa and Lucca are now just family estates of the Bonapartes. It's spelled Buonapartes. Bonapartes. But I warn you, if you don't tell me that this means war, if you still try to defend the infamies and horrors perpetrated by that Antichrist, I really believe he is the Antichrist. The Antichrist is the opposite of Jesus. And yeah, a lot of speculation has existed about the identity of the Antichrist. Here, someone's claiming that someone else is the Antichrist. And yeah, I think the Antichrist is the major antagonist of Devil's Advocate. If you want to see him referenced in film, well, I have nothing more to do with you, and you are no longer my friend, no longer my faithful slave, as you call yourself. But how do you do? I see I frightened you. Sit down and tell me all the news. It was in July 1805. Yeah, this is over 200 years ago, yo. And the speaker was the well-known Anna Pavlovna Scherer, maid of honor and favorite of the Empress Maria Fedorovna. With these words, she greeted Prince Vasily Kuragin, a man of high rank and importance, who was the first to arrive at her reception. Anna Pavlovna had a cough for some days. She was, as she said, suffering from la grippe. Grippe being a new word in St. Petersburg, used only by the elite. St. Petersburg is where the Winter Palace is located. I would love to visit someday. It's one of the major cities of Russia. All our invitations, without exception, written in French and delivered by a scarlet liveried footman that morning, ran as follows. If you've nothing better to do, Count or Prince, and if the prospect of spending an evening with a poor invalid is not too terrible, I shall be very charmed to see you tonight between 7 and 10. Annette Scherer. Yeah, I would say if you want a true test of patience, care for someone who's blind, someone who's considered handicapped, that is the spirit of challenge. Yeah, like any elderly, sufficiently aged, could reach this extent. I wouldn't describe them as invalid, but yeah, handicapped or elderly in need of a high degree of care could put some level of burden on the caretaker. It's a full-time job for a lot of people in the healthcare field. It's like nurses in elderly care. Yeah, for a reason. It's hard work. Yeah, and there's a meeting being scheduled with Annette Scherer. Heavens, what a virulent attack, replied the prince, not in the least disconcerted by this reception. He had just entered, wearing an embroidered court uniform, knee breeches and shoes, and had stars on his breast and a serene expression on his flat face. I guess she's attributing that rebuke to the prince. Oh, oops. No, she's only referring to him. Yeah, she's not using that to refer to the prince. She's simply addressing him to him. He spoke that refined French in which our grandfathers not only spoke but thought, and with the general patronizing intonation natural to a man of importance who had grown old in society and at court. He went up to Anna Pavlovna, kissed her hand, presenting to her his bald, scented, and shining head, and complacently seated himself on the sofa. First of all, dear friend, tell me how you are. Set your friend's mind at rest, said he without altering his tone, beneath the politeness and affected sympathy of which indifference and even irony could be discerned. It's like how are you? It's like, oh, fine. It's like pleasantry. the polite nature of conversation. Gotta use the bathroom. I'll be right back, guys. I'm shooting to finish out chapter 1. That is my goal. I'll be right back. Hold on, guys. Okay. Can one be well while suffering morally? Can one be calm in times like these if one has any feeling? Said Anna Pavlovna. You were staying the whole evening, I hope. Anna, I'd say it helps to have a clear conscience. And to take time to grieve, if necessary. Yeah, it's like, you might need to take time to grieve if you've experienced loss. And the feat at the English ambassadors. Today is Wednesday. I must put in an appearance there, said the prince. My daughter is coming for me to take me there. I thought today's fete had been cancelled. I confess all these festivities and fireworks are becoming wearisome. If they had known that you wished it, the entertainment would have been put off, said the prince, who, like a wound-up clock, by force of habit, said things he did not even wish to be believed. It's like a habit, like a way of speaking that he had. Don't tease! Well, what has been decided about? No. I'll just try my best with some of these names, guys. I don't speak Russian. Novoseltiv. About Novoseltiv's dispatch. You know everything. What can one say about it? Replied the prince in a cold, listless tone. What has been decided? They decided that Bonaparte has burned his boats, and I believe that we are ready to burn ours. Prince Vasily always spoke languidly, like an actor repeating a stale part. My kind of guy, then. Here we go again. Anna Pavlovna's share, on the contrary, despite her 40 years, overflowed with animation and impulsiveness. Yes, I think we know the type. It's like a yin and yang. It's like you have those cynics who are like, yeah, this should be lovely. To balance out those people who are like, yeah, woohoo! Rainbow, sparkles, butterflies! Life is amazing, woohoo! Like, if everyone was like that all the time, people would be pulling their hair out probably. Okay. To be an enthusiast had become her social vocation, and sometimes, even when she did not feel like it, she became enthusiastic in order to not disappoint the expectations of those who knew her. It's like maintaining those expectations, upholding, upholding how people perceive you. So you're trying not to change too much how you're perceived. Is something that was her concern. Yeah, probably pretty heavy in high school with different expectations and stuff. But yeah, she's that way because of her social circle. The subdued smile, which, though it did not suit her faded features, always played round her lips, expressed, as in a spoiled child, a continual consciousness of her charming defect, which she neither wished nor could, nor considered it necessary to correct. It's like she's just like, hey, it's how it is. That's just how it is, you know? In the midst of a conversation on political matters, Anna Pavlovna burst out. Oh, don't speak to me of Austria. Perhaps I don't understand things, but Austria never has wished, and does not wish, for war. She is betraying us. Russia alone must save Europe. And I don't think she's the first person to say that. Or think that, for that matter. Our gracious sovereign recognizes his high vocation and will be true to it. That is the one thing I have faith in. Our good and wonderful sovereign has to perform the noblest role on earth. And he is so virtuous and noble that God will not forsake him. Like he's an angel, he's a saint. There's like light emanating from his good deeds. He will fulfill his vocation and crush the Hydra revolution, which has become more terrible than ever in the person of this murderer and villain. We alone must avenge the blood of the just one. Whom, I ask you, can we rely on? England, with her commercial spirit, will not and cannot understand the Emperor Alexander's loftiness of soul. It's a lot like America that way. Yeah, I think if you look at the roots of capitalism, it'll follow you right back. It's like John Locke, free market and trade. And even then, it affected different ways of perception and thinking. Yeah, his loftiness of soul. It's like it's like they cannot be pure of intent. They think too much about money. To put it flatly. They cannot see his just nature. It's like they cannot understand what the Pope does. They're too busy chasing dollar signs. She has refused to evacuate Malta. She wanted to find and still seeks some secret motive in her actions. What answer did Novoseltov get? None. The English have not understood and cannot understand the self-abnegation of our emperor, who wants nothing for himself, but only desires the good of mankind. Yeah. Hard to think of any prominent political figures who are like this. Like maybe Bobby Kennedy before he got shot. To be kind of tongue-in-cheek or whatever it's called, cynical. Yeah. It's like don't be too good because someone's gonna take you out. And what have they promised? Nothing. And what little they have promised, they will not perform. Prussia has always declared that Bonaparte is invincible, and that all Europe is powerless before him. And I don't believe a word that Hardenberg says, or Haugwitz either. This famous Prussian neutrality is just a trap. It's like in wartime, the people who are neutral, I think, are the ones that people question the allegiance of the most. It's like, are they just gonna jump on the winning side once the war starts swaying in one direction or the other? Yeah, and even states that, or even countries that try to stay neutral, like the United States during World War II, they were still lending resources and whatnot to the Allies. Like we were still sending supplies to Great Britain even before the U.S. fully entered the war. So it's like, what is true neutrality during wartime? But yeah, I don't believe what Hogwarts says. It's a trap. I have faith only in God and the lofty destiny of our adored monarch. He will save Europe. For Alexander, the Emperor. She suddenly paused, smiling at her own impetuosity. I think, said the prince with a smile, that if you just sent that you. Sorry. I think, said the prince with a smile, that if you'd been sent instead of our dear Wangzingerode, you'd have captured the king of Prussia's consent by assault. You were so eloquent. Will you give me a cup of tea? In a moment. Apropos, she added, becoming calm again. I'm expecting two very interesting men tonight. Le Vicomte de Mortemart, who's connected with the Montmorencys through the Rohans, one of the French families. Political connections. Connections, as allies would say. He is one of the genuine emigres, the good ones. And also the Ab Morio. Do you know that profound thinker? He's been received by the Emperor. Had you heard? I shall be delighted to meet them, said the prince. But tell me, he added with studied carelessness, as if it had only just occurred to him, though the question he was about to ask was the chief motive of his visit. Is it true that the Dowager Empress wants Baron Funk to be appointed first secretary at Vienna? The Baron, by all accounts, is a poor creature. Like, hopefully he doesn't get appointed. Prince Vasily wished to obtain this post for his son, but others were trying, through the Dowager Empress Mary of Fitterno, to secure it for the Baron. Yeah, it's like political. It's all political. Anna Pavlovna. It's all political, the pursuit of power, I should say. Anna Pavlovna almost closed her eyes to indicate that neither she nor anyone else had a right to criticize what the Empress desired or was pleased with. Baron Funky has been recommended to the Dowager Empress by her sister, was all she said, in a dry and mournful tone. As she named the Empress, Anna Pavlovna's face suddenly assumed an expression of profound and sincere devotion and respect mingled with sadness. And this occurred every time she mentioned her illustrious patroness. Like, maybe the way some people look when they're thinking of a loved one that passed. She added that Her Majesty had deigned to show Baron Funky beaucoup d'estime, and her face clouded over with sadness. The prince was silent and looked indifferent, but with the womanly and courtier-like quickness and tact habitual to her, Anna Pavlovna wished both to rebuke him for daring to speak he had done of a man recommended to the Empress, and at the same time to console him. So she said, "Now about your family. Do you know that since your daughter came out, everyone has been enraptured by her? They say she's amazingly beautiful." Shiny. It's like that song from, what is it, Moana? Yeah, sometimes beautiful women are that way. The prince bowed to signify his respect and gratitude. I often think, she continued after a short pause, drawing near to the prince and smiling amiably at him as if to show that political and social topics were ended and the time had come for intimate conversation. I often think how unfairly sometimes the joys of life are distributed. Big true. Why is fate giving you two such splendid children? I don't speak of Anatole, your youngest. I don't like him, she added in a tone admitting of no rejoinder and raising her eyebrows. Two such charming children, and really you appreciate them less than anyone, and so you don't deserve to have them. Wait, who's saying that? Like, pretty harsh. I believe it's Anna Pavlovna that's saying that. There might be a grain of truth in what she's saying, though, but she seems bitter. Maybe about her own life. Alright, where was I? Yeah, you don't deserve to have them. And she smiled her ecstatic smile. It's like, okay, Anna. It's like she says something harsh and she's just like, jeez. I can't help it, said the prince. Lavender would have said I lack the bump of paternity. Don't joke. I mean to have a serious talk with you. Do you know that I'm dissatisfied with your younger son? Between ourselves? And her face assumed its melancholy expression. He was mentioned at her majesty's that you were pitied. The prince answered nothing, but she looked at him significantly, awaiting a reply. He frowned. What would you have me do? He said at last. You know I did all a father could for their education, and they both turned out fools. He's like, hey, I did my best, lady. Hippolyte is at least a quiet fool, but Anatole's an active one. That is the only difference between them. He said this smiling in a way more natural and animated than usual, so that the wrinkles around his mouth very clearly revealed something unexpectedly coarse and unpleasant. Does he not brush his teeth? I don't know. Leo doesn't go into detail here. And why are children born to such men as you? If you were not a father, there would be nothing I could reproach you with, said Anna Pavlovna, looking up pensively. I would say, like Anna, that there's two different lines of thinking. There's like sometimes the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and kids are like just like their parents. And then there's the other belief that it's like kids are truly individual, that they can, should, and may almost always be different from their parents. In a true sense, they are different. In a way, they've got genes from two different people. Sometimes it will be the case that they're different. Yeah. And yeah, I guess she's saying there's nothing that he's done wrong, the prince. I'm your faithful slave, and to you alone I confess that my children are the bane of my life. It is the cross I have to bear. That is how I explain it to myself. It can't be helped. It's one of those, like, how you see it things, Prince. It's like if you think your kids are underachievers, then it's like you're thinking glass half full. Look at their success. Try to celebrate what they do correctly, or what they've done well. But yeah, he's like, oh, my kids suck. My life sucks. He said no more, but expressed his resignation to cruel fate by a gesture. Anna Pavlovna meditated. Have you never thought of marrying your prodigal son, Anatole? She asked. They say old maids have a mania for matchmaking, and though I don't feel that weakness in myself as yet, I know a little person who's very unhappy with her father. She's a relation of yours, Princess Mary Bolkonskia. Bolkonskia. Prince Vasily did not reply, though, with the quickness of memory and perception benefiting a man of the world. He indicated by a movement of the head that he was considering this information. Do you know, he said at last, evidently unable to check the sad current of his thoughts, that Anatole is costing me 40,000 rubles a year? It's like the son who doesn't move out. And he went on after a pause. What will be in 5 years if he goes on like this? Presently he added, that's what fathers had to put up with. Is this princess of yours rich? No, it's a price you gotta pay, Prince Vasily. Her father is very rich and stingy. He lives in the country. He's the well-known Prince Bolkonsky, who had to retire from the army under the late emperor, and was nicknamed the King of Prussia. He's very clever but eccentric and a bore. The poor girl is very unhappy. She has a brother. I think you know him. He married Lise Meinen lately. He is an aide-de-camp of Kutuzov's and will be here tonight. Listen, dear Annette, said the prince, suddenly taking Anna Pavlovna's hand and for some reason drawing it downwards. Arrange that affair for me, and I shall always be your most devoted slave. Slave with an F, as a village elder of mine writes in his reports. She is rich and of good family, and that's all I want. It's like his son Anatole is going to be the one marrying into money. With the familiarity and easy grace peculiar to him, he raised the maid of honor's hand to his lips, kissed it, and swung it to and fro as he lay back in his armchair, looking in another direction. Attendees, said Anna Pavlovna, reflecting. I'll speak to Lise, young Bolkonsky's wife, this evening, and perhaps the thing can be arranged. I think I'll put in a good word for you. It shall be on your family's behalf that I'll start my apprenticeship as an old maid. She's playing the matchmaker, yo. Anna Pavlovna. Let's see, that was the end of the first chapter. Yeah, I'll move on to chapter 2. The chapters aren't that long in this book, so yeah. I'll just move on to chapter 2. Anna Pavlovna's drawing room was gradually filling. The highest Petersburg society was assembled there, people differing widely in age and character, but alike in the social circle to which they belonged. Prince Vasily's daughter, the beautiful Helene, came to take her father to the ambassador's entertainment. She wore a ball dress and her badge as a maid of honor. The youthful little Princess Bolkonskia, known as La Femme la plus séduisante de Petersburg, was also there. She'd been married during the previous winter, and being pregnant did not go to any large gatherings, but only to small receptions. Prince Vasily's son, Hippolyte, I guess the quiet one, had come with Mortemart, whom he introduced. The Abbé Morio and many others had also come. The most fascinating woman in Petersburg is La plus séduisante de Petersburg. I guess it's a translation. He's saying that to the Princess Bolkonskia. Princess Bolkonskia. To each new arrival, Anna Pavlovna said, "You've not yet seen my aunt, or you do not know my aunt," and very gravely conducted him or her to a little old lady wearing large bows of ribbon in her cap, who would come sailing in from another room as the guests began to arrive, and slowly turning her eyes from the visitor to her aunt, Anna Pavlovna mentioned each one's name and then left them. It's like, oh yes, nice to meet you, and it's nice to meet you, and nice to meet you. Each visitor performed the ceremony of greetings this old aunt, whom not one of them knew. Not one of them wanted to know, and not one of them cared about. It's like, okay, great, I met you. Okay, cool. Anna Pavlovna observed these greetings with mournful and solemn interest and silent approval. It's like formality, I guess. The aunt spoke to each of them in the same words about their health and her own, and the health of Her Majesty, who, thank God, was better today. And each visitor, though politeness prevented his showing impatience, left the old woman with a sense of relief at having performed a vexatious duty and did not return to her the whole evening. The young Princess Bolkonskaya had brought some work in a gold-embroidered velvet bag. Her pretty little upper lip, on which a delicate dark down was just perceptible, was too short for her teeth, but it lifted all the more sweetly and was especially charming when she occasionally drew it down to meet the lower lip. As is always the case with a thoroughly attractive woman, her defect, the shortness of her upper lip and her half-open mouth, seemed to be her own special form of beauty. I think Leo is referring to an overbite here, like her teeth show. That's what I'm getting from this. It's also a problem I've had practically all my life. Like, even after I got my retainer, it's like, yeah, as you can tell, it's like I had to put some effort into like covering my teeth because of the way my mouth is. Seems like Princess Bolkonskaya has something similar. Everyone brightened at the sight of this pretty young woman, so soon to become a mother, so full of life and health, and carrying her burden so lightly. Old men and dull, dispirited young ones who looked at her after being in her company and talking to her a little while felt as if they were too becoming like her, full of life and health. It's like she's so full of life, she just has that effect on them. Pretty dang impressive. All who talked to her and ate each word, saw her bright smile and the constant gleam of her white teeth, thought that they were in a specially amiable mood that day. It's like she's just like, wow, like boom. You're in her presence and she just lights up your life. The little princess went around the table with quick, short, swaying steps, her work bag on her arm, and gaily spreading out her dress, sat down on a sofa near the silver samovar, as if all she was doing was a pleasure to herself and to all around her. I'd say based on how she's being received, it is. Like, she doesn't need to pretend at all. I brought my work, said she in French, displaying her bag and addressing all present. Mind and knit, I hope you've not played a wicked trick on me, she added, turning to her hostess. I thought it was to be quite a small reception, and just see how badly I am dressed. And she spread out her arms to show her short, weight-listed, lace-trimmed, dainty gray dress, girdled with a broad ribbon just below the breast. Soyez tranquille, Lise. You will always be prettier than anyone else, replied Anna Pavlovna. But yet you're the prettiest one in the room. You know, said the princess in the same tone of voice and still in French, turning to a general, my husband is deserting me. He's going to get himself killed. Tell me what this wretched war is for, she added, addressing Prince Vasily, and without waiting for an answer, she turned to speak to his daughter, the beautiful Helene. It's like, even back then, war was good at getting people killed. What a delightful woman this little princess is, said Prince Vasily to Anna Pavlovna. One of the next arrivals was a stout, heavily built young man with close cropped hair, spectacles, the light-colored breeches fashionable at the time, very high ruffle, and a brown dress coat. This stout young man was an illegitimate son of Count Bezukov, a well-known grandee of Catherine's time who now lay dying in Moscow. The young man had not yet entered either the military or civil service, as he'd only just returned from abroad where he'd been educated. And this was his first appearance in society. I don't really see the point in rushing off to war anyway. But, hey, it's for a good cause. Anna Pavlovna greeted him with the nod she accorded to the lowest hierarchy in her drawing room. But in spite of this lowest grade greeting, a look of anxiety and fear, as if the sight of something too large and unsuited to the place, came over her face. Hey, that rhymed. Nice, Leo. When she saw Pierre enter. Though he was certainly rather bigger than the other men in the room, her anxiety could only have reference to the clever though shy but observant and natural expression from which distinguished him from everyone else in that drawing room. Yeah, so he also stands out, similar to Lady Bolkonskia. They both stand out. Pierre does too for his size. She for her looks. It is very good of you, Monsieur Pierre, to come and visit a poor invalid, said Anna Pavlovna, exchanging an alarmed glance with her aunt as she conducted him to her. Pierre murmured something unintelligible and continued to look around as if in search of something. On his way to the aunt, he bowed to the little princess with a pleased smile, as to an intimate acquaintance. Like they've known each other. She had him thinking that they met in a past life. Anna Pavlovna's alarm was justified, for Pierre turned away from the aunt without waiting to hear her speech about Her Majesty's health. Anna Pavlovna, in dismay, detained him with the words, "Do you know the Abbé Morio? He's a most interesting man." "Yes, I've heard of his scheme for perpetual peace. It is very interesting, but hardly feasible." I mean, it's hard to attain, that much is for certain. Seems like we've been in war for years. "You think so?" rejoined Anna Pavlovna in order to say something and get away to attend her duties as a hostess. But Pierre now committed a reverse act of impoliteness. First he had left a lady before she had finished speaking to him, and now he continued to speak to another who wished to get away. Even today, that convention exists. It's in different types of people can use this to their advantage. It's like for example, there was a young lady I was talking to, and it's like as soon as I would go to leave, she would say something. Her name was Ash. She was in New Mexico. But it's like she pulls me back. It's like I can't leave her when she's still trying to say something to me. It's like I'm locked in, kind of thing. It's like you have to keep talking to them, because if you leave them in the middle of them trying to say something, it's like you come across as rude. It's like you're the rude one then. First he had finished the lady before she had finished speaking to him, and now he continued to speak to another who wished to get away. With his head bent and his big feet spread apart, he began explaining his reasons for thinking the abb's plan chimerical. "We will talk of it later," said Anna Pavlovna with a smile. And having got rid of this young man who did not know how to behave, she resumed her duties as hostess and continued to listen and watch, ready to help at any point where the conversation might happen to flag. I don't know, I think maybe he was the way that he is, Pierre, because of his size. Like, he didn't really need to navigate social interactions as much. He just didn't need to. So he stands out just because of the way he is. As the foreman of a spinning mill, when he has set the hands to work, goes around and notices here a spindle that has stopped, or there one that creaks, or makes more noise than it should, and hastens to check the machine or set it in a proper motion. So Anna Pavlovna moved about her drawing room, approaching now a silent, now a too noisy group. It's like sometimes you see them in restaurants and stuff. It's like their conversation just takes over the whole space. Approaching now a silent, too noisy group, and by a word or slight rearrangement, kept the conversational machine in steady, proper, and regular motion. It's like trying to return to normalcy. But amid these cares, her anxiety about Pierre was evident.
She kept an anxious watch on him when he approached the group around Mortemart to listen to what was being said there, and again when he passed to another group whose center was the Ab. Pierre had been educated abroad, and this reception at Anna Pavlovna's was the first he had attended in Russia. That could have something to do with it too. He studied somewhere else. He knew that all the intellectual lights of Petersburg were gathered there, and like a child in a toy shop did not know which way to look, afraid of missing any clever conversation that was to be heard. It's like he's like, let's see. Which conversation is the best? It's like I think sometimes that can happen, especially if you're in a place where there's a lot of conversations happening at once. Practically any crowded area. Even to meet up with enough people. And it's like what you'll find is like you have a few different pockets of people who start talking, introducing themselves to one another, and you're trying to see which one you can go into. In his case, he's afraid of missing useful information. Seeing the self-confident and refined expression on the faces of those present, he was always expecting to hear something very profound. Maybe you will. At last he came up to Morio. Here the conversation seemed interesting, and he stood waiting for an opportunity to express his own views, as young people are fond of doing. It's like they always love talking about themselves, those young folk. Yeah. Some things, it's like the more they change, the more they stay the same. And it looks like we're coming up on chapter 3. But overall, I have to say I'm very impressed with the first 2 chapters of War and Peace. Leo Tolstoy did a great job of introducing the characters. The book just flows. The dialogue is excellent. We've already been introduced to several major characters. Anna Pavlovna, Pierre, obviously, Princess Bolkonskaya. It's like, he's already set the stage. Like, we already see all the major players. Prince Vasily. Prince Vasily's sons, Anatole. Anatole, and who's the other one? I'm trying to remember. I thought he was mentioned again. Maybe I should go back to their introduction. Anatole and Hippolyte. Yeah, so we've already been introduced to several significant characters. So with that, I'll wrap up today's stream. I'd say expect the next couple of chapters tomorrow or the next day. Thanks so much for watching Storm Show. I know, guys, lighting, it's always a challenge. But yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting the channel. Till next time, Storm Show signing